Ladies and gentlemen,
the most transformative sport event on earth is about to begin.
Those who are in the stadium are on their feet.
It's just a long, niggly climb.
Because it is desperation now. And there it is.
Gold! What a result! Another remarkable athlete about to write another chapter in Paralympic history.
Quiet, please. Hey.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Keep the Flame Alive, the podcast for fans of the Olympics and Paralympics. If you love the games, we are the show for you. I am your host, Jill Jaracz, joined as always by my lovely co-host, Alison Brown. Alison, hello, how are you?
How are you feeling in our new Olympic era?
I don't know. I have a lot of feels.
I know. So the Bach era has closed. Thomas Bach has ended his presidency. Kirsty Coventry is now our president, and we don't know how to feel about this.
I know. I mean, on the one hand, it's exciting to have new leadership. I am grateful, it's not the right word, but it's nice that Bach recognized, like, my time is over and it's time to pass the torch on, because it's refreshing, I guess you would say, because there are a lot of people who want to keep hold of leadership for a long, long time. And we see that a lot in federations.
You will have to pry my presidency from my cold, dead hand. No, Bach said, and they tried to get him. There was people in the IOC who said, we could change the rules for you. And he said, no, it's time to move on. And I think that's so psychologically healthy.
Yes, I think it's good to have a little bit of turnover and some new leadership. Kirsty Coventry, first female head of the IOC. And so that will be different. And I think a change of leadership, regardless of gender, is refreshing. So yeah, we'll see what kind of life she can invigorate into the games. Like we'll have to do a deep dive on Bach because he's gone through a lot during his presidency.
I think because he is in some ways a very quiet man in who he is. He's just he's very German. You know, you don't see a ton of emotion from him. We forget how much has happened and how much he's accomplished and had to manage over those 12 years. I mean, it was a lot.
Exactly. We'll talk a little bit about that later when we get to some IOC news. We have a follow-up file. Did you see this? Did you see listener Brittany posted a video about the World Games medals on our Facebook group?
Clearly not. My jaw is on the desk. They open up?
They open up. It is amazing. And of course, this was not in the press release that we got. And I just don't get the World Games sometimes. Like we haven't been hounding them. I will say we have asked for interviews and we've asked some stuff. Sometimes we get responses, a lot of times no. And then we will also get a lot of press releases on how they are working on building up awareness of the games and all these things that they're doing and initiatives they're taking to build this event up, an event that not a lot of people, at least in America, know about.
Okay, I am going to forgive the World Games because as the marketing person for this show with no staff, I completely understand how it is almost impossible to do everything you either want to or should be doing. I mean, can you imagine what the World Games staff looks like? It's probably 2 guys in a basement. Well, not quite.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know it's small, and I understand that small organizations are trying to do a lot. But there's a lot of, look at all the things that we're doing to build up the games, and yet when we ask for an interview, we don't get a whole lot back.
I feel you, World Games. I understand.
I mean, I get that. But if you're going to put out a press release that says, here's our medal, and you don't say they open up in the press release, you don't give pictures in the press release, and instead you put it in your reels and hope that somebody finds it, that doesn't help either.
So it's like a little panda locket.
It is so cute. So Brittany, thank you so much for letting us know. If you want to see this in action, go to our Facebook group, Keep the Flame Alive podcast group, And yeah, it's cool. Brittany, thank you so much. Also exciting is that we will be celebrating 400 episodes very, very soon.
Virtual pate.
That's
What are you going to wear? What are you going to wear to the pate?
probably a TKFLASTAN shirt.
Probably.
Because it will be likely hot, and I will be in my third floor attic. It gets very hot up here, so I tend to keep it cool for the summer. I may have a party hat. I don't know.
I think I'm going to try. Oh, I know what I'm going to dig out. I have a little thing from Beijing that would be perfect. I got to make myself a note now.
Just
Speaking
to
of
bring out
attics,
that sachet, because
oh my God, the sachet.
we don't have smell-o-vision for our International Women's Day sachets that Beijing gave us.
Yes, I have my Beijing box, and I will dig it out because I have an item that'll be good.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we will look forward to seeing that, and we will look forward to having you join us live. Well, not live. We look forward to having you join us on the podcast. We will be recording on Monday, July 14th from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find the link at tinyurl.com/400party. That's the number 400. So tinyurl.com/400party, Monday night, July 14th, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. Come in, say hello, we'll chat, and you can leave whenever you want. So,
or we will hold you hostage.
I know. Well, we also only have 9 people at a time. So that's hopefully 9 people will show up. But, we'd love to see you and hang out with you for a while and talk about what the last 400 episodes have been like.
Wow. Yeah.
Today's fun show. We are looking ahead to the future. We are talking with wheelchair tennis player Charlie Cooper. Charlie won this year's Australian Open Junior World Singles and Doubles titles. He won the boys doubles wheelchair title at the French Open with Maximilian Tauscher, but lost to Tauscher in the singles final. He's currently ranked second in singles in the world in the junior wheelchair division. At 17 years old, he's getting ready to transition to the senior ranks and has his sights set on the LA 2028 Paralympics. We spoke to Charlie back in March about how he got into wheelchair tennis, his heroes, and his plans for LA 28. Take a listen.
Charlie Cooper, thanks for joining us. We're excited to talk wheelchair tennis.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure.
You are in the open division, correct?
Yeah, so I'm currently 17 years old, and I play in the men's open division and also juniors Grand Slams, which I've been playing the last few years, and this would be my last year of eligibility, but kind of getting a head start now.
You're going to age out. That's what happens,
Yeah.
right? It's 18. So open division means you're in a wheelchair, but you have full use of your upper body.
Yes, so as long as you have a disability, which we go through a classifying procedure with the classifiers all over the world, and they have limited ones throughout the country and throughout the world that you have to take place in to classify in either the quad division or the open division, with quad being 4 or more limbs impaired. So yeah, for me, I'm in the open division, which anyone can play no matter what the age is and disability. So
Now, with your disability, will you have to reclassify at any point, or is it a one and done for you?
yeah, for me now it was a one and done, but just recently 2 years ago they made everybody reclassify with new rules. So that was a change, and I think they're looking to more changing the way that the divisions are. So maybe we'll have one with spinal cord injury, one class there instead of people with no legs or so. So we might have to do another classification in the future, but as of now it's one and done.
Right, that 2 years ago was kind of the Alfie Hewitt rule.
Yes,
Where
yes.
yes, it was he
Good
he
memory.
was very well, he was one of my favorites, so I was kind of
Yeah,
watching him, and he was in and he was out and he was in
right.
again. So, definitely your sport is seeing that evolution. I think the more popular it becomes, the more disabled tennis players, the more wheelchair tennis players there are, the more classes you're gonna need.
Right, right. Yeah, there's
Okay.
definitely issues with that, but we see tons of players getting in now, and I think it's good to keep like that. Or, our numbers are growing now, and it allows more people to play the sport. And although there's advantages with having more leg function than others, I think that's what makes the sport kind of cool. And it's almost like stand-up tennis. Some people are taller than others, and you have to find your way to adapt.
So, one of the things with wheelchair tennis, obviously in able bodied tennis, with things like serves, a lot of the power is coming from the lower body. You see a
Yeah.
lot of people do that jump serve. Where is the power coming from you in your body?
Yeah. For me, a fun fact about, the way I use my body in the sport is I actually use my legs. I have spina bifida, which I was born with. So I push down on the foot plate, and that helps, kind of keep me steady and helps a little bit more power on the serve. With some players, who don't have legs, that's a disadvantage. And you see, I talked to many players like Shingo Kunieda, who's probably the best ever in the sport, and Alfie Hewitt, and they all use their legs to push on the foot plate, hold on to the side of the chair, and it kind of keeps them more steady and stable. So I feel like that's an advantage. And even though it's more of an upper body sport, as we all train arms and back and everything so much, I think it's just as much. My trainers in Florida have me doing squats, and I would never would have thought I'd be doing that. So everything matters, and if you have the function, I think you got to use it.
Okay, now how are you doing squats? Explain the dynamics of that because now I'm curious.
Yeah. So for me, it's pretty hard because I have a hard time balancing as much standing up. And so we usually put like a foam block in between my legs and I hold a medicine ball. And that foam block helps me from my legs collapsing inwards. So I'm able to do squats that way. And holding a medicine ball also helps the weight. And it's really hard for me to do it, but I think it helps in the end.
Sure, I do not do squats, so I can't
Yeah.
speak to this. The other thing that I noticed a lot when I was watching it, because everybody heard about my day at Roland Garros, and I was so excited to be there for during the Paralympics. You don't see, things like chip and charge or a lot of net
Yeah.
play or a lot of coming up. It's a lot of baseline. Is that simply because trying to roll the wheelchair up there very quickly is harder and trying to balance? Is it a height thing? What changes the strategy?
Yeah, so originally before, you have all these younger players come in, I think the thought was, if you go to the net in a wheelchair, it's so easy to get lobbed and you have so much height over you. You're not as tall. We're probably like maybe 5 foot in the chair. And so when you go up to the net and have the people lobbing over you, it really, crushes your heart. You cannot be serving volleying. Even the men's game now, I live here in Indian Wells and I was watching the BNP Paribas Open the last few days. You never see anyone serving volleying anymore besides Ben Shelton. And so it's really the game is changing so much, and everybody's kind of a baseliner. But now you have players like Takeda Oda, who won the Paralympic gold medal in wushu tennis. He's serving and going to the net right away, trying to find ways to hit volleys, and that's actually what I'm learning in practice a lot. You need to be different, and I think the sport's evolving so much because if you could take the most time away from the opponent, it's hard to move the chair. You can't sidestep or anything. So if I'm at the net volleying really quick in the point, then the point's gonna be over and that person's gonna have an advantage. So I think the game's changing a lot, but the height difference is what's, limiting it a fair amount.
Okay, Charlie, me standing is 5 feet, so be careful.
Sorry, sorry.
No, so literally, how tall are you standing?
Yeah. So I'm around 5'4", 5'5". I'm a pretty small guy, so
But
when I'm
your
in the chair,
reach.
I think my reach is pretty good, but you have some players that are 6 foot and Takeda's at 5'10", so there's some taller players and there's some advantages and disadvantages that could also be talked about too. If you're smaller, you're closer to the ground, lower to the ground, you have a better push, better turn. But when you're taller, you have better serves, maybe better strokes. So again, there's all these adaptations that need to be are required for the sport.
But it also sounds like the same differences you see in able-bodied tennis, right?
Right,
Some
right.
people will be more muscular, some people will be taller, some people will be quicker. All those things really are the same. Tennis is tennis, ultimately.
Yeah,
The other thing I noticed, there is no two-hand backhand in wheelchair
yeah.
tennis. Have you ever seen a player do a two-handed backhand with wheelchair tennis?
I might have done it in practice. This is a joke, but I've never seen it on tour yet. So until someone pulls it out, I'll let you know. But yeah, it's just hard because we got to keep both our hands on the wheels at all times, get ready to move. So that's my favorite part of the sport, though. Everybody has a one-handed backhand. If you like Roger Federer, you're gonna love wheelchair tennis. So I haven't seen it yet, but maybe I'll be the first.
Be the Chris Evert of
Yeah.
wheelchair tennis. Your 2 titles are both on hard court, Australian Open and US Open from the boys division. Do you have a lot of experience doing grass and clay yet?
Yeah, so I played on grass once. I've never played in Wimbledon yet, as we don't have a junior draw there yet, and I'm kind of working my way up to the men's. So I've not played on that kind of grass. Played really high at a place called JW Marriott out here in Palm Desert, which is super high and it's super hard to move. And red clay, I don't have as much experience on. I played one tournament in my life last year, and we won it, the BNP Paribas World Team Cup, which is like our Davis Cup. And I love the clay. I feel like it's so fun. Get the dirt, the clay all over you. It's really cool, and I love the grind. So I hope to place many more on clay, and we'll actually be back in Turkey this next month for our World Team Cup. And I'll be playing the men's team, so I'll get some more experience there. But in the U.S., we have a lot of green clay, which I don't like it personally. It's really fast and it's hard to move. So there's all these different surfaces that we all play on, and we all have to adapt to it. But I think hardcore is my favorite growing up on it.
So back in the spring, we spoke to David Wagner. We asked him about playing on the red clay. Obviously, he's done this a lot. And he said the most disturbing thing is where all the clay gets.
Yeah.
Just gets everywhere in your
Yeah,
body,
yeah.
in your chair, in your mouth. So I don't know if tasting it would be a lot of fun.
No. Yeah, it gets all over me. I have some on my chair still from literally 6 months ago. It just does not go away. I'll probably end up in my bed too. So.
Speaking of your chair and the rules, you were talking about the reach. And for example, in sitting volleyball, they have a butt rule, how you got to keep one cheek on the ground.
Okay, yeah.
Is there a cheek rule in wheelchair tennis?
I've heard of a cheek rule, but there's a strap rule. You have to be strapped down. You can't be coming out of your chair standing up, and your feet can't be touching the ground. So those are the rules for that. But I think players, try to get past that, and almost most of them are kind of kneeling sometimes, trying to open up their hips. So there's definitely not those kind of rules in, and our chairs are super advanced now, so we're trying to get the best benefits we can. But everyone seems to be strapped down, more one with the chair. If you move, the chair will move with you.
Okay, so let's talk about the chair. What
Mhm.
is the difference between a wheelchair tennis chair versus your street chair?
So first of all, the wheels are cambered out, they're tilted out, and that's for turning all these fast movements. And the material is also different too. I mean, on the top chairs now, I mean, I have an RGK brand chair, and that's what Alfie has, and all the British players. It's really popular, and it's made out of carbon fiber. A lot of the materials on the chair, and I also have a thing called a bucket now, which is the seat. It's not just the regular back and two sides holding you in. It's more of shaped perfectly to your body, and it surrounds you. So I feel like that helps with my hip movement and everything. So they're much designed to yourself more than just a seat, I'd say, and it moves way quicker.
How much do they cost?
Yeah, I mean, chairs get really expensive now. It's almost like having a motorcycle. So, if you get the top of the line, it could be up to 10,000 or more US dollars. So it's pretty pricey, but there's lots of foundations throughout the adaptive sports world that could help you with that cost, and even the companies like RGK could help sponsor, and it's really cool that they all work for you. If you can't get a chair, there's someone out there, some organization that'll help you get one. So I think it is really accessible here in the U.S. to get a sports chair.
How often do you have to replace the chair? Or
Mm.
is it pieces, like you replace the bucket and then you replace parts and
Yeah.
kind of rebuilding it constantly?
Yeah, so actually, I just changed my chair back in December, and for me, I'm 17 years old. I'm growing a lot, so that's also something you have to factor in. And is it a good investment to invest now, and then I might grow, a year later? Maybe not. But if you have sponsors and things that could help you, then it's more reasonable. So that's something that younger athletes have to look for too. It's not just like changing shoes. You're investing $10,000 in a new chair when you're growing. So I'd say, I think the top of the line players change every 1 to 2 years, maybe finding another advantage, which moving your chair, your seat, inwards to be more aggressive when sitting. And there's all these changes that they do, but in the junior space, we're changing because we're growing. And I think that's a big part of the sport, which that might be a problem now is how expensive the chairs are. But I think once we get by that with sponsors and everything, and then it'll be more easier to adapt.
How terrifying is it when you put that chair on the airplane?
Yeah, I've been blessed. I've not had any problems recently with in the last 2 years with my chair. And a big thing now is everybody's getting huge boxes to put in their chair. I know some people that have pet cages that they put their chair in, which is a cool design. But everyone's just so scared of a wheel breaking or something, because that could cost you the tournament. So I definitely have to start taking more better care of my chair. I guess I've been lucky recently. So, but
You're
in the
also
past,
17, Charlie. It's what you do at 17. You
yeah.
take chances.
I take risks. So yeah, It's scary for everyone. I know me and my dad, we go to the airports like, is it going to be on the plane? Is it tagged right? We got to make sure all that stuff is right. And I think airlines are getting better with it, but I've seen videos workers just throwing chairs around after the plane lands. And it's tough to see, but because sports chairs, it's a sport now. It's most of these people's income, their life. So I think it's got to be treated more carefully. But like the boxes, all these advancements are helping with that.
What kind of shoes are you wearing when you're playing?
Yeah, so I'm sponsored by Yonex, so I wear Yonex shoes, but I've not realized that I haven't figured out if any shoe is an advantage or not yet. We'll have to do a study on that, but yeah, I don't think shoes have a huge part in play yet, but I wear the tennis shoes just to go with the outfit and look good, play good.
You mentioned Shingo Kunieda. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah.
As kind of your tennis hero. He's one of the greats of wheelchair tennis. But what about his game speaks to you?
I've been, blessed that he's moved out to Orlando full time to learn English and help us train at the USDA National Campus. And so I go there. I'm actually going there tomorrow, 2 weeks out of each month. So I'm, with him every time. He's teaching me how to hit balls and mainly his mentality. And I think that's what he's taught me the whole time. So basically, even when he was the best player, I think he was the number one for like 10 years, year end. And he didn't just stop there. He always thought, how can I get better? What's something I can improve? Because I think once you hit number one, some people, peak. They're like, I've done everything I can. But Shingo was like, no, I'm hitting the practice court. I need to hit 10,000 balls of this one shot. And his, mentality is insane. He's always trying to get better. Even against me, he's retired, but he's the greatest. And he's playing against, a junior like me. I hear him in the back. He's like, let's go this point, this point. And speaking in Japanese, he's just like we're playing a Grand Slam final. I'm like, oh shoot, he's not going easy. So that's what I love about him, and it helps me, bring that fierceness to the court. And I got to keep learning from him every day.
You mentioned you're going to have to move up, but you've also been trying to move up from boys
Yeah,
to men. What's the difference? I mean, obviously it's harder, but what does that mean in the nitty gritty?
yeah. So it's a big jump for sure, and the junior games evolved so much. Like we just started Grand Slams, which is our first U.S. Open 3 years ago for juniors. So the space is evolving so much, and it's like stand-up tennis now, where you have juniors trying to get into that stage. And I think I'm, kind of one of the first going through that stage in the sport as it's all new. There hasn't been any signs of winning a junior Grand Slam means you're going to win a men's Grand Slam. So it's a big jump, and I think in the men's game, there's just way less mistakes. I might hit a ball down the middle, not so hard, and a junior player might miss it, and it's just about who gets the ball in more. In men's game, I have to be hitting 90% down the line to get a point off someone like Gordon Reed or Shingo. So it's a much different game, and what I've realized is you got to be taking it serious. You got to make sure that everything's in place going in the tournament. Your health is good. It's just stand up tennis. Everything's the same, and that's something I have to learn. As a few years ago, I thought I'd be fine just training. Going to school in person, just training 3 times a week, and it wasn't until the reality of the men's hit where everybody's so good and everybody's got their trainers where it's like if I want to do it, I got to take it serious. And with help from my parents, I made that choice last year, pretty much in March, to go online and go to school at ICL Academy and train full time. So it's been awesome, but that's what helped me, and that's the difference. I have to understand what it takes, and that's the goal of the men's.
So you said you're going to school online, so you're not going to
Yeah.
school in person, and you're doing the off-court training besides squats. What does off-court training look like for you?
So in Florida, I work out every day for an hour each day, and at home it's 3 to 4 times with my trainer here. But I'm mostly in Florida, so we do bench pressing a lot. We have a ski erg machine and a rowing machine, all for stamina. And we've also do a lot of drills with the chair that they make adaptations in Florida. We had a chair on 2 treadmills, and they'd be kind of slow, and I'd have to push against the treadmill, and that was probably one of the hardest workouts I've done. And we also do drills inside the indoor courts where we have timers set on the ground or sensors that check how fast you turn, and speed drills that time you so you can get better each week. So all those things are essential. Just like stand-up tennis, you got to be doing all those certain tests to get better. And one thing that I also do is mental training. I have a mental coach, psychologist who helps me. I talk to him, almost every week, and a couple times a week. He's like my therapist, and sometimes it's about things on court, but it's also off court, like pressure, feeling, and how life could just get so much, playing tennis, and then having to deal with all the pressure of wanting to become the best men's player, but transferring out of the junior stage is something I've been figuring out recently. It's really hard. So being able to talk with him is amazing, and it's something that wheelchair tennis athletes in the past have not had the opportunity. Is just all this junior space is new, and the USTA taking good care of us now with wheelchair tennis. They're fully in, and we're treated just like anyone else.
Let me ask you a little bit about doubles, because I know you play
Okay.
doubles as well, and I loved
Yeah.
watching wheelchair doubles. Now, with stand-up tennis, there is always the issue of you have to make sure you don't crash into each other. And I would think with wheelchair tennis, that is even more complicated because you can't move sideways. You can
Mhm.
only move front and back, right? Wheels don't go sideways. So
Yeah.
is it an issue? Like, how do you work with that issue when you know your mobility is limited?
Yeah. It's mainly just communication. When you watch winter tennis, there's so much communication going on. It's you, me, switch. We're doing all these different movements, and I play with my friend Tomas, who's my age, Tomas Majetic from Colorado, and we're pretty much the top U.S. juniors transferring to the men's stage right now, and we play together a lot, so we know each other very well. But when you watch us play, we'll be saying switch a lot, which means we switch sides, and one of us goes up, one of us is back, and I think that's kind of how we navigate not hitting each other. But there's been so many times, even recently, it still happens where a ball's coming down the middle, we both turn sideways, and one of us hitting backhand, and one of us hitting a forehand, and we just clash. So there's a lot of that, and a lot of hitting each other, but it's just communication's the biggest, and I think that's what's cool about the sport is that it's almost like a dance. One chair is going forward, the other one's moving around, and it's really fun to watch.
I think what's fun about wheelchair doubles is you really can more than stand-up tennis, you see the communication. You
Yeah.
see it more where it happens so quickly in stand-up tennis and so little moves. The wheelchair tennis, it's bigger moves just because it's you and the chair, and that makes it
Yeah,
fun
it's cool.
to watch.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's really cool the way you worded it. It's definitely. I mean, it's not only a little slower. It's there's more tactics to it. If my partner's at the net turning around, I mean, I gotta hit it. I gotta hit higher to have time for my partner to get back. And there's all these different tactics. But yeah, I mean, you won't really see four people at the net dealt like in body tennis. So we have much longer rallies and so much cooler shots. I think because everything's kind of slower and that's what makes it cooler because it's the chair and you're not just sidestepping everywhere, running around. So yeah, that's what makes it really cool.
What's your favorite shot?
So my favorite shot's the backhand down the line. I love the one-handed backhand, and it's something I've always loved. Shingo, has helped me learn it too. He's got one of the best, so it just feels so good, because again, it's hard to sidestep, hard to move across the court. So when someone serves a ball on the ad side and I'm ready on the backhand returning, all I have to do is go straight down the line, and 8 out of 10 times it's a winner if it's close because it's just so hard to get out of the serve position to push to the other side of the court, and that's something that players have to adapt to. But it just means how big the return game is in the sport. I think it's bigger than serving because if you could return the ball really well to the other side of the court 8 out of 10 times, you're winning those 8 points. And with serve speeds not getting up, we obviously don't hit past the 120, 130. You might see 110 at most. You're not hitting the biggest serve. So I think return game's the coolest, and that's why I like my backhand down the line.
Is there anything different about your racket versus stand-up tennis racket?
I would say no. I think we all do pretty much the same things. I think the men's game has been really heavy with the way they add weight to the rackets in Wadi, and I don't think that would be the same for wheelchair. As it's hard to push a heavy racket while pushing the chair, and I've done it before. It's really tiring on the arms, and it might feel good for the first few shots, but once you're 2 hours in a match, it's gonna feel the worst. So I think we do have lighter rackets, but talking with Shingo, talking with Alfie, they're all custom with the brand. It's pretty cool treatment, and they all change the weight. The string's the same, so everything's pretty much the same. And even the stand-up pros are starting to go lighter with the rackets to get faster racket head speed. So I think it's all the same.
Are you a tight string or a loose string person?
I used to be a tight string until I started hurting my arm. So recently, I just went down to 48 pounds, which is I think it seemed pretty low. I like the feeling, and I found a way to control it, but it just feels so good when it's looser for sure.
Okay, you mentioned hurting your arm. With having spina bifida, are there specific injuries that you need to be concerned about that another player wouldn't?
I'd say there might be lower back could be a little different than other players, as most of us have or we're born with called tethered cords, so things are pretty tight down there. And if you don't take care of yourself, you don't stretch, then you might get muscle spasms, which I've had that before. It was more of picking up a weight, and the way I can't use my legs to hold that weight, it puts stress in my lower back, and so having all the spinal surgery there, it could affect it. But I haven't heard anything specific about injuries with spina bifida with tennis. But I'm sure they're there. But we have to do the best to take care of myself, and I'm starting to get better at it. It's hard, I'm 17. I don't really want to stretch or anything, but I learned the hard way last year, so I'm definitely getting more into it. And yeah, all my physical therapists, I talk to them like, "Have you stretched?" I'm like, "No, I haven't." And so it's all the same thing. And
Charlie,
most kids like
I
me
am
don't.
not 17, and I will tell you, stretch now, and you will be so happy when you get older.
That's what I hear. We'll see. I'm taking the risk.
So are you just like a typical teenage boy and hate stretching, or is something like, are you just super tight?
So for wheelchair tennis, all of our forearms are just super tight, and
Yeah.
it's almost impossible to get it loose. Like it's just a wall. And I've tried, massaging it so many times with different people, and it really doesn't get any looser. So wheelchair tennis players in general are all really tight in the upper body because that's all we do. We don't run and then only hit the ball. We're pushing nonstop. So I'm very tight, but it's also I don't always take the time to stretch. At home I'm not. It's just hard for me to do that. I just wake up and just want to go to practice already. So it's something that I have to go through, but I'm learning. I'm getting better. It's what it takes. So yeah.
Right, you're still I mean, you're moving up in that division, and you're learning all this off court things and what you need to do. You talked about Shindo, and who else are you admiring and kinda taking clues? Where are you stealing from?
Yeah, so I'd definitely say it's Keto Oda for sure. He's only like 2 years older than me, so he's very young, and he's really good fast. So like I talked about, the way he comes to the net, the way he's so aggressive, it's really something to learn from because back 5, 10 years ago, or when I first started about 7 years ago, there was no one coming to the net. Everybody was sitting back in the court waiting for the two bounces. And now it's like if you don't take one bounce, then you're behind. You're not going to win the point. So that's huge right now, and I'm learning that. And obviously, Shingo's the best example for me because he played so well, just right on the line. And you have Roger Federer right in front of you, pretty much of wheelchair tennis. And so I take most of my tips from them to the Japanese. And also, on the stand up side, it's Ben Shelton. I love the way he plays, and it's more I learned the mentality from him. I love the way he gets hyped up, and that's what I need. When you watch my match, if it lets goes in there, that's what I do all that stuff to try to get myself in the game. I'm not trying to be obnoxious ever. I don't get to that point, but yeah, Ben Shelton is really a role model for me, and we're pretty good friends. I see him at the campus a lot at USDA, so it's cool to have him around. But I like that younger energy, and I think it's what the sport needs because I think if you bring too much of a robot kind of activity, you just no celebration. I think it's hard for people to get into the sport, especially younger, because for me, I wasn't a typical tennis player growing up. My parents never played. I wanted to be an NBA, NFL player, but I couldn't because I had a disability. So I love that energy. I love I love the trash talk, but I don't trash talk, but I love that kind of energy. I love the let's goes, all that stuff. It's just what I grew up with. And so for me bringing in tennis, I think attracts more people, and that's what Ben Shelton's been doing. He's a huge traction just because of the way his personality is and the way he kind of brings that basketball side of the court. And I think that's what we need in wheelchair tennis because I think to grow it, we need the younger generation to come in, and that's what I've started to do. And I hope to be inspiration for those kids that don't know what tennis is and have a disability and see that they could be playing at the same stages as all these players, as it's the one adaptive sport where you can pretty much make a living and also play at the Grand Slams, which is amazing.
Well, Alfie Hewitt is also a talker, so you're in good
Yeah.
company. Yes,
Yeah.
he has a lot to say when he is on the court. Gordon Reed
Yes,
also
yes.
is a talker. So you
Yeah.
come from you're taking from the best on that one. What's your favorite kind of opponent? Like when you see
Hmm.
this opponent on your bracket, oh, this is gonna be fun.
I think it's the loud grunters. I just love playing them, and especially the Spanish. Danny Caversace, who's been playing for a long time. He's top 10. he grunts super loud, but I love it. I love his grind. He fights so hard, and even though the ball might not be he might not be hitting as hard as he can, he still puts all that you feel it when he grunts. It's just it feels like a huge ball is coming at you. And Martin de la Puente from Spain too, another grinder on clay, and those guys inspire me a lot too. I mean, in practice with my coach in Florida, we'd be playing every time we play in the red clay, leading up to one of these tournaments. We're grunting as loud as we can. We go Martin, like we yell these players' names. They know too. We talk about it, and we've even changed my name from Charlie to Chartine, which is in honor of Martin, just the way we play on the clay. So those are my favorite players to play, and it gets me, really in the game when people are grunting loud, and helps me get the energy. So I like where the court's loud, and I think that attracts the most fans too. Whatever's loud, that's where they go. So.
You talked a little bit about when you were a kid, you didn't come from a tennis background. How did that come to be that you ended up on the tennis court?
Yeah, so I played T-ball growing up because I walked with leg braces my whole life. So I was playing, basketball standing up for fun with my friends in fifth grade, middle school, and I would have never have imagined playing tennis, and it wasn't until I went to a guitar shop because I play the guitar and piano, which was a huge passion in my life, and mostly in worship music. So I went to the guitar shop one day and met someone outside with spina bifida, which was a younger kid, and he told my mother and I about a clinic going on at the Indy Wells Tennis Garden, and which was 3 minutes from my house. So I gave it a shot Friday, and I met my coach Dwayne Begay, who's still my coach now, which is crazy, and another player named Todd Hanover, who was one of the top U.S. players then. And seeing that, it was all new. My first time pushing a chair, first time hitting a ball. It was all so new for me, and that's something also I had to adapt. Was I didn't know how to push a chair. It was all new to it. Like most players, grow up pushing chairs in wheelchair tennis. I had to learn all those skills. And I think it was really hard, but that was the dream I found. Like I said, I wanted to be in the NFL. I wanted to play NBA, just like most other kids. And my parents, didn't know what the dream for my life would be either. Having to co-spine bifida. So finding wheelchair tennis and now seeing where I am now, it's amazing. And I think it's a gift from God that I have a disability. Because if I didn't, I think I'd just be a regular kid. Just playing high school baseball, going to college, not playing sports again. And so I'm blessed to have the opportunity, and it's really helped my mentality. And that's what I want to show other kids, that a disability is just the ability, to inspire and find your sport, find your passion.
Okay, so you're 17. Are you a junior or a senior in high
I'm
school?
junior.
Junior. Okay, so you've got one more year. We're looking ahead to 28 because I know you've mentioned LA 28 is the goal. What are the next 3 years? Are they mapped out? What do they look like for you in terms of moving towards that goal?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I don't have this mapped out too well right now. I've not looked at colleges yet. It's something I talk about with my parents and some coaches. It's wheelchair tennis is different. In the able body side, you could go to college, you could play Division 1 and play some of the top 200 players in the world because most of them are playing college tennis and came out of it. So wheelchair tennis is different because I think the junior space is stronger than the top junior spaces could be stronger than most of these colleges already, and it's just a matter of getting more players in that are trained full time. But there's some great coaches, great programs. You'll get scholarships, but right now I think the path to becoming the top is not through college right now or a college team, which is it's too bad because I'd love to go to college in person and have that whole experience. But I think online college or doing something with that might be the way since it's just in 3 years. And that's what some top athletes have or most have to do now. I think like Martin De La Puente, he went to like online college, and most of these athletes I talk to are still learning, a business degree online. So it's very hard to go in person and still travel full time because we're traveling all around the world, not just in the state. So yeah, I think I'll give it another year, see where I'm at, and I'll see from there. But as of now, we're thinking about possibly even moving to Orlando to train full time, which would be huge because we have Shingo there and a whole program there to help me get better. And you leading up to the Paralympic Games, which is my dream. So my parents support me a lot, and they understand that God gave me this dream, and this is it, the Paralympics in LA, which is my home state. home city pretty much. So it's amazing, but trying to make the right steps to get to that level. And I know my parents really want me to go to college, but I wish I could just play tennis.
And you know what? There's no one road. That's the one thing I will
Yeah,
that's my mom voice coming in going, there's no one road to
right.
any of this. When you're looking forward in terms of thinking about this as a career, because you're saying I only want to play tennis. Where is wheelchair tennis as a field in terms of being able to do that?
It's growing so much, and it's crazy that we even get to have this conversation about this because a few years ago, no one would have thought of this. Back 10 years ago, even the founders of the sport, Brad Parks, I don't think we'd ever see wheelchair tennis, being able to make a living because I think they were making like maybe $50 for winning a Grand Slam back in the day. Now it's really cool because the winners get around 100,000 of a Grand Slam, which it's not the greatest amount, but it's something, and it's cool that the Grand Slams are supporting it this way. And I think it mainly comes to sponsors and opportunities like speaking, inspiring others. And if you're doing all of that, I think I've been told from my coach in Florida, if you're doing the right thing and inspiring others, you can't really fail. You're finding good in some way. So yeah, I think the players are making a good amount of living. I mean, Shingo Kiev was the first one to do it pretty much. Having a full agent with IMG and first athlete of Uniqlo, which is huge. So if you're partnered with a huge brand like that, and I think it's more about inspiring and getting more players in the sport. It's bigger than the prize money. And that's how stand up tennis is. I don't think players are living off of prize money. It's really hard sport. So yeah, I think it's getting that space, and it could be pretty well. And obviously, I think you got to have something else after wheelchair tennis. And for me, I'm still trying to figure that out. I think it'd be really cool to be a sports agent after. I love that field, and I think it's really cool. So maybe if I go through that stage and become a top player with the learning the sports agency on the way, then I think maybe that would be my dream after. So yeah, I think players are making a good living, like Alfie and Taquito and all of them. I think it's very well. So I think it is possible, and I think it's the one sport where you can do that. You can do the tennis route and make a living. So it's really cool, and it's cool to be having that discussion too because adaptive sports. I don't think most people would ever think that. It's just crazy because I think viewers make revenue, and with all this sponsors and everything, and it's really special to be able to make a living in tennis.
You mentioned that wheelchair tennis is now under the auspices of the USTA. What's your relationship with like them? What are you hearing from them? What is that agent association doing for the wheelchair tennis players?
Our wheelchair tennis goes through ITF, which is the rankings, but our USCA handles the wheelchair tennis in the US. And I think just around 2018, 2019, our wheelchair tennis got accepted into the USCA fully, and that means that us as players, working with the coaches, we get to train full time at the USCA national campus, which has 100 courts. The best trainers, best coaches, and we're also just looking into hiring a full time coach for the USCA for the first time. We have a wonderful coach named Jason Harnett there, who has been around for so long and coached many great players. And he kind of runs everything. He's helping funding go out for wheelchair tennis. He's changing rules, helping the grassroots, and then while coaching players like Dana Mathewson full time, or Maylee Phelps and me, and it's really a lot for him. So for them, hiring a full time coach is huge. So now I'll be able to go out there and train with him or train with another coach, and we're actually having a lot of players move out there now. Like my friend Tomas Majetic is moving out there, and Maylee Phelps, who's a rising women's player, moved out there. So it's everyone's kind of coming together in Florida. I think that's also something that's not talked about too in the sport. If you look at wheelchair tennis, a lot of players are from the Netherlands, and top players like Esther Vergeer, who was a legend, and Dita de Groot and Niels Vink. So you have all these top players, and I think we talked to them, and because they all train together. They're all close together in Netherlands. In the U.S., I have to fly 2 hours just to get to the state next to me. Really, it's crazy. And from California to Florida, it's a whole day to get there. So it's not as easy to train with other wheelchair players. But I think that's kind of what we were lacking. But now that we have this center in the USCA and them partnering with us, Shingo's coming out. It's really helping us all tremendously.
The Dutch also have the advantage of the Dutch fans. They are
Yeah,
have you seen these Dutch fans? They are
the
insane.
blowhorns, they're crazy.
And all the orange, I was a little frightened when I
Yeah.
What have I missed about wheelchair tennis that you want people to know about?
I think one thing that most people don't know about now is that the Miami Open is taking place this next week, and we have wheelchair tennis there, and we're starting to open up at many ATP tournaments, WTA, and I think the goal long term, or just maybe just a few years, is to have the circuit go along with the ATP, WTA, and so if once we have all of our players competing at the same levels, and kind of having a challenger level maybe with the ITF, and to get up in that stage, I think a much professional, I mean, a much more watched sport, and the competitiveness is just going to keep going up. The players coming in is going to keep going up. So that's something huge that many people don't know about. I think we're hopefully going to get Indian Wells next year on the radar for an invitational, which would be cool. So I think these are huge steps, and just in the Grand Slams, if you were to go out to Grand Slams, you're going to see wheelchair tennis there, which is amazing, and draw sizes are going up so much. I think we had around 48, 60 people at U.S. Open last year playing wheelchair tennis in the tournament, which is huge. Just the presence of wheelchairs going around in the locker room. I mean, I was sitting next to Carlos Alcaraz in the locker room in Australian Open, and we're all just kind of together as one. So it's really amazing, and I think wheelchair tennis is pretty easy to spot now if you go to a Grand Slam, and that's what we need. One person saying wheelchair tennis and telling their friend who has maybe a disabled kid or someone with spina bifida and saying, oh, they're playing at the Grand Slams. You should get into this, and that's what we need. And I think eventually, hopefully, we'll be on ESPN someday on main channel. I mean, that's kind of my dream to see. Waking up one day, turning on the TV, and seeing wheelchair tennis. That would just be amazing. And the Paralympics was a huge step, having full stadiums out at the Roland Garros sites. It was just amazing to see that, and how many people came out. The French fans are going crazy. I love to see all that. So to have that in LA, that's my goal. Because I think we need someone to promote wheelchair tennis in the U.S. And I think it's been a while since we've had someone like that. And so for me to do it, and hopefully doing it in the right way to inspire the younger kids, and it's because it's all less about me. I've been given this opportunity from God and from the people that founded wheelchair tennis. It's helped everything I've dreamed of. Otherwise, I'd be your normal kid. Or for me, I also had like kind of stayed in my house a lot and was kind of afraid to go out and do things having a disability. So it's helped me branch out and find myself and find my dream, and that's what I want for other kids. So that's my goal for LA 2028.
How is accessibility when it comes to places like Flushing Meadow or Indian
Yeah.
Wells or any of these other big tournaments?
Yeah, I think you get some tournaments that are so good, and then some tournaments that are just you got wooden planks on the ground that you have to push on. So in the US, I think we do a really good job now, actually. I think everything's pretty accessible. We got elevators in every building. But it's really hard when you go to places like France or England. There's always a step up to go in the door, like a huge step in these little shops. And even pushing on the ground, like broken stones on the ground. And I think it's really hard to get around there. But here in the US, we're blessed to have amazing access everywhere. The U.S. Open, amazing access. They let us in the tournament transportation cars, even for the juniors, which is just really nice Cadillacs, just because some players might have a hard time transferring onto a bus. So being in these cars and the treatment they give us is amazing, and elevators everywhere, doors you could, push the button and it opens. I mean, I think America does a really good job. But yeah, I would like to see it more in Europe because it's always a hard time. Everybody dreads it. The doors are too small. It's really hard, and especially with the cities being so old. It's with less advancements. I think that's the tough part about accessibility in those countries.
Yeah, thank you, ADA, here in the US.
Yep.
What about Charlie Cooper have I missed that you want to share with
Hmm.
people?
I think one thing about me that I want most people to know is just I love talking to people. I love talking to younger kids and asking me questions about, well, how do you not have pressure for this match? I have a kid named Fernando who's really good coming up with my friend. He's probably like 5 years, 4 years younger than me, and out of San Diego. And he texts me sometimes. He's just like, how do you deal with pressure for a match? What do you think I should work on for this tournament mentally? And I love giving tips to them because that's why I do it, to get those kids playing. And I'll always show up to these camps here at these tournaments and show up and say hi, hit with some players. I just love it because the sport's given so much to me, so I love giving back to them. And something else that most people don't get to know about me either is, I kind of mentioned it. I play the guitar and the piano. I love playing music. I played for since I was 7. And I also I do music producing too, so I work mainly in rap music, other music like that, making the beats and audio mixing and stuff like that, which is really cool. I do on my downtime, and that's something that most people don't know about me. So I have a love for music, and that was my passion before tennis. That's what led me to find tennis, going to the guitar shop. So everything fell together, but that's what I do, and everybody's still waiting for the day I get on the piano or a guitar at a tournament. But I always try to leave if I see one. So I'm too embarrassed to do that. But yeah.
Oh, Charlie, now you've given me a goal.
Oh no.
I will see you in LA and I will bring piano.
Oh no.
Well, Charlie Cooper, thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charlie. We planned this to put on before Wimbledon. There's no boys wheelchair division at Wimbledon this year.
Well, it's still tennis. It's still Wimbledon. Charlie, apparently you and I will just be watching it on television together, virtually.
But that gives him plenty of time to gear up for the hard court season, and he's looking to defend his title at the U.S. Open in September. Follow Charlie on Insta at Charlie J. Coop. We will have a link to that in the show notes. But if you are watching wheelchair tennis at Wimbledon, we've got another conversation that will help you enjoy. We're talking chairs. We're talking with Dr. Thomas Rietveld, who is a researcher at the Peter Harrison Center for Disability Sport at Loughborough University in the UK. We originally scheduled the interview to talk about work that he did that helped change rules for wheelchair rugby going forward. And then we found out that he also has done a lot of research on wheelchair tennis chairs. So naturally, we talked about that as well. And we are bringing that conversation to you here. Dr. Rietveld's PhD thesis was on wheelchair tennis, and it was called Wheeling Performance in Wheelchair Tennis, Understanding and Improving a Complex Skill. So we had to ask him about that. Take a listen. I have a random wheelchair tennis question. Have you ever looked at how clay affects the chair and then the player's ability to move the chair?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting one because the Paralympics were played on clay because Roland Garros is on clay. So there has been quite a bit of focus on clay wheelchair tennis, and also there's more and more focus on grass wheelchair tennis as well, with Wimbledon playing on grass, and there's more and more wheelchair tennis tournaments leading up to Wimbledon with Queens and Eastbourne, and some of them are still like exhibition matches, but more and more of these tournaments are including wheelchair tennis in their programs as well. So we work with some of the GB wheelchair tennis players to indeed look at different chair settings to see if we can push them a bit more to the limit on clay and on grass as well. So there has been a collaboration with the LTA here in Great Britain, and the main thing is to create a bit more grip on those courts, because if you're pushing on a clay court and you try to make a rotation and you do that really quick, then you might slip or drift over the court. And to make sure that you're not skidding that much and keeping that grip on the court, you might actually choose to maybe reduce your tire pressure a bit or use a slightly thicker thread of your tire just to create a bit more grip, especially if you go through those corners, which you do a lot in wheelchair tennis, because in wheelchair tennis you're constantly making small rotations to anticipate for an opponent making a shot. So it's especially about the trade-off between creating grip and moving around the court. But in wheelchair tennis as well, if you look at some of the Dutch players, they make some incredible wheelchairs as well, which are fully customized. The only thing is that they're quite expensive to produce. So it's not accessible to all, but I think that in general, the chairs are looking amazing.
Dutch do pretty well in wheelchair tennis in Niels Vink.
Yeah, the women and the courts do.
Yeah, it's great.
Do really well. Dita, she's just recovering from an operation that she had, but she will be back at the top pretty soon, I suppose.
What does grass do to a chair, or the maneuverability versus, say, a hard court?
So grass is a lot more tough to push on. I don't know if you've ever tried it yourself. I tried it myself just because I wanted to experience it as well. But you can see it in testing as well, because we did a couple of field tests on grass, and we did them on hardcore as well. And if you do 2 strong pushes on hardcore, then you can just go on for, I don't know, 4 chords and you're still rolling. But if you're on grass and you do 2 strong pushes, then you'll be standing still before you hit the net. So there's a lot more resistance on a grass court, especially if there's actually still grass on the court. Because if you look at the baseline at the end of tournaments, and that's usually when the wheelchair tennis players come on court, because they've got a smaller draw. So a lot of the baseline is gone during the tournament. But so on grass, there's that trade-off between the baseline, which is getting closer to a hardcore, but then there's these patches as well with grass where you're also pushing it. But on grass, you want to make sure that you're not digging into the court too much. So especially if you look at the little caster wheels that you've got in front, if those are too small, well, usually they have quite small caster wheels, but for grass, it might make sense to pick a slightly bigger, thicker caster wheel just to make sure that you're not digging into the court and actually keep on rolling. So on grass, it's a bit of the same as a clay court as well. You want to make sure that you're grippy, but it's a lot more tough to push on, and it will be a lot more straining to the players. But again, if you look at wheelchair tennis, it's also dominated by research in the men division. There is some research in women and quad as well, but it's limited, and it's all dominated by hardcore as well. There's so little out there on grass and clay courts, so there's still a lot to learn in that area.
So it feels like with your research is something that happens whenever we do an interview where we say, put it on the list. It's like one field of research leads to 10 more questions that you want to explore.
Yeah, and it's sometimes quite dangerous as well, because you've got all these amazing ideas, and indeed, if you do one, then you end up with 3 more, and you can't do all of it. That's why it's usually a team of effort as well. And I feel quite blessed here working at the Peter Harrison Center for Disability Sport with Vicky Tolfree, who's leading our research here, and she's so supportive of also getting students involved and getting research assistants involved and PhD students. PhD students are the key to get research forward, because they usually do a project for 3 years and they can really delve into a topic. And if you do that for 3 years, then you usually do a lot of good stuff. So yeah, PhD students are key to get your research moving forward, and we just help to facilitate them.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rietveld. Always good to talk science and get to geek out on wheelchair sports.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. It was lovely to talk about wheelchair rugby and wheelchair tennis as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rietveld. We'll have a link to the Peter Harrison Center for Disability Sport in the show notes, and you can learn more about that organization.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno. We are getting closer and closer to Milano-Cortina 2026. It's getting to be like 9 months away, less than 9 months.
Shushy.
Okay. Also, shushy are the Russians. The International Luge Federation has voted to continue the exclusion of Russian athletes from FIL competitions, so they will not be able to qualify for Milano-Cortina 2026. A further vote was conducted to see if the members of the FIL wanted to develop a neutral athlete program. Again, denied.
Yet.
During the vote, which took place at the FIL's Congress, their athletes commission presented the results of an athlete survey about the matter, and there were arguments on both sides of the issue for exclusion and inclusion, and the topics they brought up included safety, Olympic quotas, anti-doping compliance, and fairness. So it's interesting the issues that the athletes are really concerned about. And I will say, like, Sochi 2014 coming back to haunt you guys.
Yeah, I mean, you dope and people don't forget. And then there was the whole issue when we were in Beijing for the Paralympics that there was a real problem in the village with the Russian athletes after that first invasion.
Hmm.
They sort of danced around what was happening, but there was a lot of tension. So I
Say,
guess there is concern about there being a lot of tension if Russian athletes are there.
so no Russian athletes for luge. Also, Milan-Cortina has revealed the art posters for the event. There are 10 posters total, 5 for the Olympics, 5 for the Paralympics. Each was created by a different emerging Italian artist under the age of 40 who was part of the 2023 Triennial Milano's main exhibit, Pittura Italiana Oggi.
Nice.
The posters and the torches will be on exhibit at the Piano Parco Galleries at the Triennial Milano from June 19th, right now, to March 15th, 2026. These are not the only posters for the games. The iconic poster launch is coming in September.
Okay, good. Because these didn't have a lot to do with the Olympics and the
I found them to
Paralympics.
be very, very underwhelming.
Agreed. There was one that had the Olympic rings in an ice cream cone, but we were all upset by that one because it wasn't really lined up properly.
Well, not only not lined up properly, so because you noticed this, we posted this in the group, the Facebook group, that the bottom 2 rings slash scoops of gelato would not have fit into the ice cream cone at all. And then I believe listener Don noticed that the rings are out of order.
The colors are wrong.
Yes, the colors are wrong, which again, now I can't unsee that. And that was my favorite design out of the bunch, if you can
A,
believe that.
a lot of them were art posters. I didn't see the connection, except for one of them. One of the Paralympic poster had these squared off sit skis. We have to include this in the show notes because this one is the most terrifying. If you look at these sit skiers, it looks like a child's drawing of a witch on a sit ski. And they have these sort of penciled expressions on their faces like, I'm going to get you.
That one is terrifying. There's an Olympics one where somebody, it's like a big head lying on its side.
With
And
hands.
Are they dreaming? And their head is around, encircled by a yellow ring. And then in smaller rings of the other colors are different sports. There's one of a picture of the Dolomite Mountains and very, very tiny skier, very, very tiny skater holding a torch, and a very, very tiny hockey player. That was the only other one that was really sporty to me. And they got to look better in person.
Well, a lot of them are very beautiful artistically, but I didn't see the connection. Well, I know you're making a face. I liked some of them just as an art poster, but the connection was lost on me. Okay, so after Paris, where we had that wild Where's Waldo poster, which I actually came to love. I have to go back and I wonder what I said at first. I probably thought I was in a drug-fueled Where's Waldo book, but I really came to love it because we saw it everywhere. They really used that a lot. Milan has a lot to live up to, but you think the Italians would be doing better on design.
Yeah, and so I'm hopeful that the iconic poster is much better. Well, I don't want to say that. Well, I do want to say that. I hope better and different.
Thank goodness for Milo and Tina. They hit it out of the park with the mascots.
Yes. Can we have an art competition with Milo and Tina posters? I would love that.
I would love
art
that.
posters with them. I'm coming off of Paris with the Where's Waldo poster. I'm curious to see what they will do because the Where's Waldo was definitely a completely different direction than every other Olympic poster. And say what you will about that, it is kind of cool because it does make you look and think and take it all in. And it really, the Summer Games actually kind of felt like that when I think back on them.
It did.
Yeah.
Right? It encompassed that whole environment, the mood they were trying to create.
So we shall see, but we've got some art to look at for the time being. Also, if you would like to be a volunteer at the Olympics closing ceremonies or Paralympics opening ceremonies, they're looking for people to apply. Now, this will be taking place in Verona at the stadium there. Auditions will be in Verona this fall. You must be at least 18 years old by September 30th. No experience necessary, but you have to be able to attend rehearsals. The Olympics rehearsal will be at the beginning of February and will run through the 22nd, which is the date of the closing. And then the Paralympics rehearsals will be at the end of February to March 6th, which is the opening ceremony's date. And we will have a link in the show notes.
So I could audition for the Paralympic one because that won't cross with the show.
Yeah. You could.
I could.
Big news from the IOC on Olympic Day, which is the anniversary of the creation of the International Olympic Committee. The 12-year run of Thomas Bach as IOC president ended, and he handed over the ceremonial keys to the Olympic House to new president Kirsty Coventry. He got a little choked up.
I saw
Did you
that.
see that?
I
was,
did.
yeah. Because
As I would expect.
Yeah. I mean, it hits him. He has so much passion for the Olympics. And I think it's good that an athlete runs the games.
Well, certainly an athlete like Bach, who had so much additional experience.
Right.
He was an athlete, and then he did all that management stuff in the German Olympic Committee, and he was involved in a bid, and he was involved with fencing and athletes commission. And so when he got the job, he was not a newbie.
Correct. And Kirsty Coventry, although she is quite young, she's in her 40s comparatively. I think Thomas Bach is now in his 70s. So he started either when in his late 50s or early 60s. But Kirsty Coventry has also been very much involved with sports administration since she retired from swimming. And I think that her being in many different commissions of the IOC has given her that same kind of grounding and basis to find ways to lead the organization moving forward.
I think it's going to be exciting. I didn't realize how young her children are.
I know one's just is not even a year old.
One is 7 months and the other is a toddler. So I think that also brings a whole new dimension to the room when you have a young mother and how that dynamic is going to be. And they've talked a lot about making changes for parents who are athletes and how can we balance that. And she can say, I feel ya. I mean, she knows what this is like every day.
Exactly. And as athletes get older, we need those kind of accommodations and that kind of thinking. Because I mean, back even when she competed, not that many athletes competed into their 30s and 40s unless you were a shooter or an equestrian, basically.
Right. You saw a handful of women coming back after pregnancy, but it was always a big deal. Oh my goodness, she had a baby. It's like she's lost her entire athletic ability.
Mm-hmm.
Look at her go. And now we see it so much more frequently as it should, and women competing pregnant, which is amazing.
So it will be interesting to see what she brings. We will be doing some look back at Thomas Bach in future episodes. So be tuned in for that.
Welcome to TKFLASTAN.
It is the time of the show where we check in with our team Keep the Flame Alive. These are past guests and listeners of our show who make up the citizenship of our very own country, TKFLASTAN. First up.
At the U.S. Paralympics Swimming National Championships, Mackenzie Cohen took second in the women's 100 free S1 through S14 and third in the 53 S1 through 13. Olivia Chambers took first in the women's 200 IM, SM5 through 14, and also the 100 breast, SB 4 through 9, and SB 11 through 14. And Ellie Marks took first in the women's 100 back, S12, S6 14, and first in the women's 50 fly, S6.
Who was not there was paraswimmer Jamal Hill, but he was in Lausanne with the LA 2028 Athletes Council for the International Athletes Forum there. And then he went swimming in Lake Geneva. I know.
Tough life, Jamal. Tough life. Pole vaulter Katie Moon won the Paris Diamond League event.
And Team Schuster has been named to the Team Allianz roster of winter athlete ambassadors, as has Mike Schultz, whose memoir we read for book club. And that's going to do it for this episode. Let us know what you think about wheelchair tennis.
And we do love hearing from you. You can chat with us and other listeners on our Facebook group, Keep the Flame Alive Podcast. Email us at flamealivepod@gmail.com. The voicemail and text line is always open at 208-352-6348. That's 208-FLAME-IT. And if you need more Olympics and Paralympics in your life, and who doesn't, sign up for our newsletter at flamealivepod.com. We'll have a link to that in the show notes.
Next week, we will be looking at Paris 2024's initial legacy. So if you love those games, you will want to hear what's been going on since the cauldron went out. And just a warning, just start looking at plane tickets right now. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, keep the flame alive.